I suppose, Kieran, within the time frame of the pandemic, and we're not through it yet, we've seen sectors that have done well, we've seen sectors that haven't done so well. Even within different sectors, I've seen people within that sector that have done well, and people that just haven't coped with it at all. I suppose post-pandemic, what are your clients seeing as the challenges and the opportunities?
I'm seeing a couple of specific challenges in specific sectors, which you'd be well aware of yourself, Mark. Supply chain being a major issue, but that's not really a pandemic issue, that's a Brexit issue. And in our part of the world here in Northern Ireland, there are particular challenges around all of that. There is also a number of specific things as well. Like, clients are finding it hard to recruit specifically for different industries. It's actually getting people at the right level, I think, as well. So recruitment is a bit of a challenge people are facing. I don't see that at this point in time. There are obviously still sectors which are in recovery mode. You know, hospitality, tourism, and so on are obviously badly affected by the pandemic, and retail. So there are specific sectors still facing particular challenges, but I do think that recruitment and supply chain are two big things that are particular challenges that clients are facing for the purposes of trying to recover their business, but also try to grow their business as well, which is something that most business owners now need to be looking forward and doing. And just on that as well, Mark, you did mention about certain businesses within a certain sector have suffered because of the pandemic, because the sector has suffered, and other ones not so much. And that's been all about the ability to change their whole, maybe their operating model and their delivery model. And that all comes down, and I'm a great proponent of mindset in all of this. How you think about what your problem is going to determine what the outcome is going to be, and I'm a great proponent of above the line thinking in that, which is instead of blame, excuse and denial, try to get your mindset along the lines of acceptance and ownership and responsibility in all of the aspects of running your business, and take it to the extreme of even something that's not totally your responsibility or fault, make it yours, because then you'll find solutions and problems. So that can be applied then to the whole problems they have with supply chain and recruitment. And what I'm advising some clients as well is go and talk to somebody who'll be able to help you in that particular area. So, like, if we're looking to recruit, I'd like to speak to HR recruitment type people. I always like to speak to people who are experts in that particular area.
I agree totally, and I suppose I see that first issue of taking responsibility a lot, particularly within my role. And quite often I'll get the response, it's the banks, it's ridiculous, it's this, it's that. And 99 times out of 100 it's not. The first thing is taking ownership of it. And the other thing for me is surrounding yourself with the right people and good quality advice. You know, if it's poor quality advice, you're not going to get good outcomes. And sometimes for me, it's taking the advice, and even if I don't fully understand it, putting my trust in the advisor if I know them well enough, and going with it and seeing where it takes me.
And I think all that as well, Mark, like, it's expanding the people that you're surrounding yourself with to think along the lines of, at Cloud 360 Accounting, I have a team of people working with us, but I also think about you as an extension of our business, because if we need to speak to you about a specific case, then we can do that, or if it's HR, or if it's recruitment, or if it's marketing. Like, there are other departments within your business that form part of your overall business, so the people that you're surrounding yourself with isn't just the people you're sitting in an office environment with. Nowadays, like, we've offshored and had somebody from the Philippines working with our business as well. There's so much more potential if you sort of take that ownership, acceptance, responsibility to what you can do with your business, and how you can sort of move the whole thing forward.
You're right. I mean, the SME sector's changed a lot, but particularly within professional services, and there isn't the same need to employ people, but do you have to build relationships, build trust, and have a number of associates to get where you want to be.
I think that applies even without the pandemic being a factor in this. It's all about relationships with your team, and I often explain to our clients it's all about having the right systems in place to run your business. You've got to have the right team in place to run those systems as well. So that, to me, is something that we're trying to make sure people are focused on now post-pandemic, and try to stop looking back. It's not that the pandemic's done and dusted and we'll never hear of it again, but at the same time, you're not going to move forward if you're always looking in the rear view mirror.
You're not looking for blame, you're looking for solutions, you're looking for a way forward and what's coming next.
Exactly.
So tell me, you have referred clients in the past to Johnston Financial Solutions. But why do you choose to refer your clients to a credit broker, fundamentally, to look after their lending proposals?
The main reason, Mark, is that number one, I know they're going to be looked after, and I know that they're going to get the best possible deal that is available for them. Plus, they're also going to get various bits of advice around what their current strategy is. Now, I know a lot of accountants delve into that area and have a relationship with local bank managers and so on, and they will prepare funding applications and business plans and all that sort of stuff. I purposely decided we're not going to do that, but we can still have a good relationship with a client by helping them have a relationship with the likes of yourselves, and making sure that they know that we're the ones who are pointing them in the right direction. So there's making sure they've got a good relationship and that they're going to be looked after is number one. Secondly, it's dealing with credible experts. So like if somebody comes and needs marketing advice, I can give them tips as to how we do things, but I'm not a marketing expert, so go and speak to a marketing consultant or a digital agency or whatever you need to do. If you need funding and finance, speak to somebody who is living and breathing that day and daily, just like yourselves. I mean, there's a number of cases we've run by you in the last number of years with funding into the six-figure ranges type of thing and beyond, and they've always had a good deal and a good experience doing that, and they've saved a lot of time as well, Mark. And to be totally selfish on it, it saves me time having to do all of that for a client. I'd rather focus on sort of staying in your lane, giving people the services that we're experts on, so we'll look after the whole cloud, digital, and tax advisory type of stuff, and let you guys deal with the funding applications, deal with the finance, because that's what you do day and daily, and you'll know it a lot more than I will. So why wouldn't you do that?
And you're right, sometimes understanding what you can't do is everybody's important as understanding what you can do, and saves you a lot of time and money in the long term.
It's funny, something came to mind as you're saying that about understanding what you can do and what you're good at. I watched a clip of Jimmy Carr yesterday on LinkedIn talking about sticking with what you're good at, and he talked about if you get an A in English, you get a D in physics, and your teachers are sometimes pushing you to be an all-rounder, and you need to get that D up to a C. He says, I think it should be, no, let's get that A to an A star. That's going to be an easier move, and that person loves what they're doing when they're doing the A grade stuff. So for me, I apply that type of mentality to business and working with clients. We're very good at this. We will make sure that that's looked after. Even from our perspective, Mark, working with you from the funding and finance side of it is absolutely key to getting the client the best deal. We also have external tax consultants who form part of a tax advisory team. And if there's special things, like we're doing a share scheme at the moment for a business in London, but the tax advisory team are looking after that. I know a bit of it, but I'm not going to go through all the reams of legislation to cover all the process for them. Giving people the right advice has to come from the right people, and come from credible experts. So that's why we're referring people to you for their fund and finance needs.
So it sounds like it's all geared to get them the best outcome ultimately for the client.
Oh, absolutely. I don't want to be giving them a grade D physics service when they can go and get a grade A service from like yourselves. So Mark, and we've been mentioning earlier in this chat about the recovery loan scheme. I'm not sure if it's very well named, to be honest. It should be more of a sort of growth and innovation loan scheme, because I think that's the direction people's minds need to be taken. But with the recovery loan scheme, how can the loan scheme help businesses to move forward, and what help specifically are you providing clients with accessing the recovery loan scheme?
You're right, that probably is badly named. You don't need to be in the last chance loan. They did use the recovery loan scheme. There have been some very positive cases that we've used the recovery loan scheme to support more growth for the client and take things forward. In terms of the clients, I would encourage them to think of it as a wrapper rather than a one-off product. They're 70 lenders on the scheme. Basically, it all comes with a government guarantee. It's going to be 70% now in the new year. So, every funder there has a slightly different product. The key for me is understanding where the client is at, and I can do that better who's got up-to-date management accounts and everything else, and understanding where they want to go going forward and what options may be available from there. So I wouldn't think too much about the specifics on the recovery loan scheme in that sense.
So let's say a client has decided, or a small business has decided, I want to go and access the recovery loan scheme, and people do what they do nowadays and they stick that into Google. They're going to get a lot of results coming up on the search criteria.
Yeah.
So, do they even know where they start, and how do you how do you help to narrow that whole criteria down to get them the right type of finance?
Well, it's a bit like we've discussed previously. I mean, you can do anything looking up YouTube and Google. You can learn to fly a plane if you want, but you'll probably crash it before you get too far. You know, you'll get there a lot quicker with specialist support. You should be yourselves or somebody else. I would encourage people to go and get support somewhere. Just depending on what they want to achieve. I would also encourage them to get the support early. Somebody once said to me, a bank will give you money a bank will give you money, give you an umbrella when the sun's shining. And to some degree that's true. When you're in a strong position, you have many more options. And it's about trying to stay ahead of the whole financial process and the cash flow. You have many more options than when you're needing a loan just to get into trouble.
And I suppose as well, one of the things that sometimes prevents people, I think, from going to get the help is, oh my God, this is going to cost me X amount before I even start. But I think trying to get people to understand that there's going to be an investment to get the right product and get the right finance in place.
Yeah.
But they need to look at the saving that's achievable. You can go on Google and probably access a loan with some provider at a specific rate with various fees and attachments.
Yeah.
But if somebody like yourself is looking at it, Mark, you're going to tell them, well, actually, this product doesn't have this level of fees. This one has a different rate. This one has a different sort of wrapper around it as well. And over the course of a 5 or 10 year term, you're going to save X amount for your investment.
Yeah. And look, a lot of that can't be established day one in the commercial world. But we will have a discussion with the client, probably for an hour or so, trying to understand where they're at and what they're trying to do. We'll certainly explain to them at that stage how our fee structure works. Quite often it's commission based, so there's no upfront fees or fees outside the finance piece. But at the stage then we get to actually selecting finance, we can explain to them how things work, what it's likely to cost them. Very often people get into financial deals without understanding what it's costing them in the long term. So it's important that they do have that understanding of it.
And also the fact that they're going to be in this term for 5 or 10 years or whatever as well. Is you guys are basically very good as well at understanding and building a relationship with them first and understanding their business and their needs rather than just selling them a product. I know that's why we refer our business to you as well.
Yeah, quite often we're reaching the conclusion that a loan isn't the best solution here to the customer core problem. Sometimes it's not. And sometimes what the client thinks they need at the outset changes as we go through the discussion and we have our input.
And Mark, is there any misconceptions that small business owners have in relation to the recovery loan scheme itself?
I suppose a common query I get is a lot of people see it as a one-off project. It's not, as we said earlier, there's 70 lenders there. And there are instances where it potentially isn't the best solution for people because there's sometimes a little bit of extra cost for the government guarantee, whatever, and they can maybe achieve what they want to achieve without that cost,
So the guarantee in itself comes with a cost, and I think that is something that people aren't readily aware of. When they hear it's government backed, they probably think it's actually maybe a cheaper product and it's easier to get away from as well, I suppose.
Yeah, sometimes it's good value and it is the right thing. Quite often it is. And particularly where directors are concerned about personal guarantees, by the time they go away and insure their personal guarantee for their loan, it's maybe a cheaper way of doing it,
It's a bit like buying a car. You don't buy the first one you start seeing drive. Normally, you would have to go and check out a number of different options.
You have to decide what your criteria is first and what it is you need.
Yeah, brilliant.
So Kieran, listen, I just finally want to thank you for your time today and taking the time to chat to us. But have you anything you'd want to add, any final remarks you'd want to share with business owners coming into the new year?
Yeah, I mean, Mark, there's a number of things that business owners, I think, need to be aware of and get focused on. Number one, focusing on their mindset and getting their thought process right and looking forward instead of behind. I think it is time for business owners to keep stepping forward. And it's been a challenge for a lot of small businesses to get into that mindset, but that's certainly something that working with the likes of you and ourselves can help with. So working with people who give them that peace of mind, which is one of our core deliverables. And I know it's the same kind of stuff for you guys in terms of what you do. So if we're helping small business owners with their digital finance department and looking after their bookkeeping and all of their tax advisory and so on, if we can help them to make more money and save time with better systems and give them peace of mind, we know we're winning. And that's exactly the same, I suppose, for you guys as well. So the big thing for small business owners is start to look forward, but talk to credible experts, talk to people who you can build relationships with, so that you don't have to have all of this worry on yourself. Running a business can be a very challenging and often lonely place. Loads of people out there who can help, We can help with digital finance and your accounting, bookkeeping, tax needs. You guys will help with all the funding needs. So